Welcome back again to the 10th edition of NFL Weekly. I'm Nick Senafani.
I'm Brenden Garula.
And we're going to switch it up this week. I'm going to start us off with the games. The first game we have here is a Game of the Year contender between the undefeated 49ers and the 7-2 Seahawks. It might not have been the highest of scoring games, but the defense was what made this game exciting. On the offensive side for both teams, though, Russell Wilson didn't have his greatest game, throwing only for 232 yards and a touchdown while also throwing a pick and fumbling as well. But he clutched up in the end, and Jacob Hollister continues to be a nice surprise for Seahawks fans, catching 8 passes for 62 yards and a touchdown. On the Niners side of things, the defense played really well at first, and the offense didn't get much going the whole game. Deebo Samuel had a good game going for 100 yards, but the Seahawks take this crazy game in overtime and go to 8-2 while the Niners go to 8-1.
Next, we got the Bears hosting Lions as Jeff Driscoll gets the start for the Lions as Matthew Stafford goes down. Jeff Driscoll throws for 269 yards, a touchdown and an interception, also rushing 5 times for 37 yards, leading their team in rushing yards. And Marvin Jones continues to be a big fantasy guy for his fantasy owners, hauling in 5 receptions for 77 yards. Mitchell Trubisky still can't get anything going for the Bears, except he did protect the ball pretty well this week. The Bears take this one in a low-scoring game, 20-13.
Mahomes is back as the Titans take on the Chiefs in Tennessee. Mahomes getting right back into it, throwing 50 times, completing 36 of those for 446 yards and 3 touchdowns. But what if I told you that wasn't enough to beat Ryan Tannehill and the Titans? As Tannehill throws for 181 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Derrick Henry explodes for 188 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground, and Adam Humphries catching a game-winning touchdown from Tannehill with 23 seconds left in the game. Tyreek Hill had another very good game with 157 yards and a touchdown, but that wasn't enough as the Titans take this one 35-32 and ruin Mahomes' comeback game.
We got a gross game here in New York with the Jets hosting the Giants, as neither of them have exceeded 2 wins. Daniel Jones having a great game for the Giants, 308 yards and 4 touchdowns. Darius Slayton, 10 receptions, 121 yards, and 2 touchdowns. What a beast. And for the Giants, Saquon Barkley, 11 attempts for 1 yard. 1 single yard. He's a beast, but when he has an offensive line like the New York Giants, who can do anything with that? That's just awful. On the Jets side of things, not great on the stat line, but they end up winning 34-27 with Jamal Adams fumble for 6.
We have another good game in Tampa as the Bucs take on Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. Both quarterbacks had pretty good days through the air as Kyler throws for 324 yards and 3 touchdowns, while the Cardinals have a receiving trio of Christian Kirk, who was a fantastic waiver wire pickup this week, as he catches 6 passes for 138 yards and 3 touchdowns. Andy Isabella brings in 78 yards, and Fitz brings in 8 passes for 71 yards as well. Winston also threw for 358 yards and a touchdown, but of course, he couldn't go a game without throwing 2 picks. Mike Evans had a decent game, 4 receptions for 82 yards. And Peyton Barber scored a touchdown, and this was enough to lead them over the number 1 pick in the Cardinals, and the Bucs go to 3-6.
I'm a Bengals fan, and Nick is a Ravens fan. We have been talking about this game all week. Just kidding, the Bengals suck. They lose 49-13. Lamar Jackson is a beast and a real MVP candidate as he throws for 223 yards, 3 touchdowns, also rushing 7 times for 65 yards and a touchdown against this horrible Bengals defense. Ryan Finley gets to start for the Bengals after they bench Andy Dalton, throwing 167 yards, 1 touchdown and interception. But Joe Mixon, 30 attempts, 114 yards, finally exceeding 100 yards this season in Week 10. Remember, he was the leading rusher in the AFC last year. That just explains how bad the Bengals' offensive line is this year. I don't know what else to say. The Bengals suck. The Ravens are going to the playoffs. 49-13 Ravens.
We head to Cleveland in a matchup between two 2018 draft class first-round quarterbacks, as Josh Allen and the Bills take on Baker Mayfield and the struggling Browns. The Browns got back on track this game as Baker finally did a little something, throwing for 238 yards and 2 touchdowns. And of course, Nick Chubb exceeded triple digits in the rushing category. And they also got Kareem Hunt back, who had a good easing back in game with 4 attempts for 30 yards, a good average. Jarvis Landry had a nice game, hauling in 9 receptions for 97 yards and a touchdown. And on the Bills side, nothing really got going. Josh Allen had 2 rushing touchdowns. He didn't really get much going through the air. And nobody really had a star standout receiving game for the Bills. The Browns take this one as the Bills miss a game-winning field goal.
We got the Saints-Falcons in what should be a blowout with the Saints winning. But actually, the Falcons won 26-9. The Saints offense can't get anything going, with Drew Brees throwing for 287 yards, Alvin Kamara only getting 24 rushing yards, and only 4 attempts. But Michael Thomas obviously goes off once again, 152 yards and 13 receptions. Matt Ryan doesn't throw for that many yards, but the Saints defense struggles against the Falcons offense. Falcons win this one. Go to 2-7 as the Saints drop to 7-2.
This game is absolutely disgusting between the Miami Dolphins and the Indianapolis Colts. 4 picks were thrown, 3 of those coming from the right arm of Brian Hoyer and 1 coming from Fitzmagic. There's absolutely nothing to talk about this game except the Dolphins are on a winning streak and are undefeated in November. They take down the Colts 16-12 and go to 2-7.
Next, we had the Lambeau in a game where it was snowing. Aaron Rodgers, 233 yards, no touchdowns. But Aaron Jones, 93 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's his 11th rushing touchdown this season. And with Devontae Adams back to full form, he hauls in 7 receptions, 118 yards. And Christian McCaffrey goes off, exceeding 100 yards and having a touchdown. The Packers win this one 24-16.
Another low-scoring one in Pittsburgh as the Rams are taking on the Steelers. Both quarterbacks couldn't get anything going. Mason Rudolph only thrown for 242 yards and Goff thrown for 1 more, 243. Through the air, James Washington has taken a big step up this season. This game with 90 yards and a touchdown. And Robert Woods finally getting something going with 7 receptions for 95 yards. But the Steelers take this one 17-12 and go to 5-4.
We got Sunday Night Football here in Dallas as the Cowboys are on primetime once again. Dak Prescott having a pretty good game, throwing for 397 yards and 3 touchdowns while also throwing a pick. But Zeke cannot get anything going, having his worst performance of the year, only rushing for 47 yards on 20 attempts. But Amari Cooper steps up in this big game, hauling in 11 receptions, 147 yards and a touchdown. On the Vikings side of things, Kirk Cousins protects the ball very well during this game. But he didn't throw for that many yards, but he protected it, which was what mattered. Dalvin Cook rushing 97 yards and a touchdown, but also hauling in 7 receptions and 86 yards. This led the Vikings to a 28-24 win as they moved to 7-3.
We head to a matchup between 2 California teams, the Raiders and the Chargers. Again, both quarterbacks didn't get much going. Phillip Rivers only throwing for 207 yards, also throwing 2 touchdowns, but also 3 interceptions, which costed them in the end. And Derek Carr only throwing for 218 and a touchdown. But Josh Jacobs continues to be a beast and a legitimate Rookie of the Year candidate as he rushes for 71 yards and a touchdown. And Melvin Gordon with a big game, exceeding triple digits, going for 108 and a touchdown. But in the end, it was this Raiders defense that stepped up and led them to a 2-point win as they look to be a serious playoff contender, going to 5-4.
Our Team of the Week segment has to go to the Seattle Seahawks as they take down the undefeated 49ers team. Russell Wilson throwing 24 of 34 for 232 yards and a touchdown. And Chris Carson rushing for 89 yards and a touchdown, while also Russell Wilson rushing for 53 yards. On the receiving side of things, Russell Wilson is very good at spreading the ball around. DK Metcalf and Jacob Hollister both had 10 targets. DK hauling in 6 and Jacob Hollister hauling in 8. They combined for 132 yards and a touchdown. And Josh Gordon making his Seahawks debut, hauling in 2 of 2 targets for 27 yards. And this Seahawks defense is what really made the difference, as they held this dominant 49ers rushing game to less than 100 yards. This was crazy one, as the 49ers kicker misses a game-winning field goal, which gives the Seahawks a chance to kick the game-winning field goal in overtime as they win 27-24 and give the 49ers their first loss of the season.
Our player of the week this week is going to Derrick Henry, who was a big part of this upset win against the Chiefs. On the ground, he rushed for 23 times, 188 yards, and found the end zone twice. He didn't get anything going through the receiving end, but his big plays in the rushing game made the team not worry about Ryan Tannehill passing as much. And his big game led the Titans to a 3-point win over the Chiefs, ruining Mahomes' comeback game. That's about all we have for this week. Thank you for joining us. I'm Nick Sinafani.
I'm Brenden.
And we'll be back next week for Week 11.